Welcome to the People of Nature podcast. Today we have Miss Sobiya Said in our studio. Welcome Sobiya to the People of Nature podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. I appreciate you
So
invited me and I look forward to having a nice conversation with you.
thank you Sobiya for being a part of this podcast. So let me introduce you to our audience. So Sobiya did her 5-year integrated bachelor's and master's degree, BSc and MSc, in zoology from the Department of Animal Sciences, School of Life Sciences, Central University of Kashmir in 2020. Presently, she is registered as a PhD student at the Center for Conservation of Natural Resources, Transdisciplinary Studies, Bangalore. But before going to the PhD program, she worked as a research intern on biodiversity and climate change at Mantaki Center for Science and Society and project assistant at Watson Creek Center for Molecular Medicine, both at Islamic University of Science and Technology, Avantipura, Kashmir. Sobiya is a member of various learned societies, organizations, both national and international, like commission member of many uh, various groups, including the Species Survival Commission, Butterfly and Moth Specialist Group, Commission for Education and Communication, World Commission on Protected Areas, and Entomological Society of India, as well as International Society of Tropical Forests. Sobiya has been a subject matter expert of City Biodiversity Index, Jammu City of Union Territory of J&K, prepared and published by UNDP and ICLEI, South Asia. So, Sobiya has been doing so many things, and am very glad that she's working on insects. So, we are going to have a lot of conversation on that. But lastly, Sobiya belongs to an area which is still considered conserved for women and has seen conflict and violence from decades. Yet today, we have Sobiya with us, and let's get to know her conservation optimism through her story. So, welcome Sobiya to our studio.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Thank you.
So, Sobiya, I will directly jump on to these questions now, and I think it's going to be a pretty interesting conversation with you. So, my first question to you is, of course, about the kind of studies you're doing. So, you have been studying butterflies for, I think, more than 4 to 5 years. How and since when
Yeah.
did your interest in butterflies begin?
Uh, so I will start with saying that it's been a long journey where I get
Mhm.
connected with butterflies. I was
Okay.
born as a fifth girl child in a family having limited resources.
Mhm.
My parents left no stone unturned to support all four sisters in acquiring education. My
Right.
parents had a dream to see me as a MBBS doctor.
Oh.
Immediately after finishing my 12th class, I fully focused on NEET in 2014.
Okay.
However, Almighty has kept something else to happen. I lost
Mhm.
my father in the same year,
Oh.
which changed whole perspective of my life.
Right.
I seriously could not accept this tragic development in my
Mhm.
life easily. I
Right.
was almost devastated and had left every hope.
Mhm.
I got selected for honors program in different subjects in University of Delhi,
Mhm.
and I was admitted in BSc honors in zoology at Daulat Ram College. I
Mhm.
studied there for a month but could not adapt due to high stress level.
Right.
And so in the meantime, I got selected for integrated BSc MSc program in
Mhm.
biotechnology and zoology at Central University of Kashmir.
Mhm.
I quickly cancelled my admission at Daulat Ram College
Mhm.
and admitted
Mhm.
myself at Central University of Kashmir in 5-year integrated BSc MSc program in zoology.
I see. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, as a person, I had aspiration to become a civil servant, so I was
Mhm.
connected to the structure of civil service exams during my BSc program. However, I could not fully concentrate in that area due to some reasons.
Mhm.
Immediately after finishing my masters, I got an opportunity to work as research intern in biodiversity and climate change at Mantaki
Mhm.
Center for Science and Society, Islamic University of Science and Technology.
Right.
Although it was COVID period and we could not do much in the field, but this gave me an opportunity to learn new things, to get connected to experts, improve my interactions, and broaden my career opportunities. We were
Mhm.
three interns, and all were girls, and one was my class fellow. So I
Okay.
felt more comfortable to work and learn with them.
Mhm.
I have been inspired by nature since my childhood. This internship got me fully connected to nature and natural processes and interconnectedness.
Right.
I start looking for protection, conservation of natural heritage. At the same time, since my BSc, I have been attending in special talks, seminars, conferences, which further increase my capacity to understand natural things, where I got ideas about future career options. During my internship, I learned many things about the biodiversity, especially insect biodiversity like butterflies, moths, dragonflies, damselflies, beetles, pollinators of Kashmir, Himalaya. What's its relevance, importance, cultural aspects, threats, challenges, and why we need to protect it. After finishing my master's, I took instructions and advices from some teachers, experts who suggested me to focus on climate change aspects. In between, I had developed connection with Dr. Arvind and Dr. Ravikant from A3. I qualified GATE in life science in 2021 but could not got selected at University of Kashmir for my PhD program. So I contacted Dr. Ravikant and Dr. Arvind, who gave me extremely valuable advices and suggestions. I was connected to Dr. Chetan, who offered to be my supervisor. After discussions and because of my interests and understanding, I concluded that I will focus on biodiversity of butterflies of Kashmir Himalayas in context to climate change. Here, I want to highlight that in developing all these connections, the
Mhm.
role and support and encouragement of Dr. Ejaz Ahmed Qureshi, Research
Mhm.
Officer of Science and Technology, Avantipora, Kashmir, was instrumental. So I have a chance to see him closely when he
Okay.
was pursuing his PhD program.
Mhm.
This gave me an idea to pursue research as my career. Since I could learn that
Mhm.
butterflies are important pollinators and have a role in ecosystem
Mhm.
functioning, and at the same time are facing a lot of crisis in Kashmir Himalayas besides
Correct.
climate change, will impact more heavily in mountainous areas. I
Mhm.
choose to study them in my PhD program. In addition, I was part of field studies with Dr. Ejaz since 2010 and I was involved in rearing some species. I
I see.
have got an idea about them and was fascinated by their diversity, color. Uh, in
Mhm.
addition, the encouragement and timely advices of Dr. Chetan made my journey very smooth. So I
Mhm.
registered for my PhD at University of Transdisciplinary with Dr. Chetan and Dr.
Mhm.
Arvind at Italy as my co-supervisor. This also fulfilled my dream to get associated with institutes of excellence and eminence, and in this way, I got connected with butterflies working as a PhD scholar.
Wow, that's amazing journey that you just narrated, Sobiya. So, butterflies is something that you are working on now, and we got to know how this interest developed and how these various mentors in your life they have guided you towards this journey. So
Yeah,
you are also working as a member of various groups, mainly this butterfly and moth specialist group, right? And you're
yeah,
also working as an education group of IUCN. So
yeah.
what kind of work do you conduct in your role at IUCN?
Uh, I was part of IUCN project on reassessment of world swallow-tail butterflies, and
Okay.
I had and I am attending various meetings and talks and
Mhm.
providing my inputs for better policy and research on butterfly conservation at global level. At the
Right.
same time, I am contributing in enhancing the education and awareness about conservation among the community, particularly students. I'm more focused on contributing as a woman conservationist in the IUCN and other reputed organizations.
I see. I see. So I think that's pretty interesting work that you are doing out there at IUCN. But we also got to know that you work as a coordinator and research assistant for Himalayan Environmental Sustainability Society (HESS). So can you
Yeah.
give us a little bit information about what this HESS does, and what is your role working there?
Uh, this Himalayan Environmental Sustainability Society is a coordinated volunteer response of people devoted to provide a holistic approach and best practice recommendations for facilitating channels and ways of maintaining sustainability of Himalayan biodiversity, environment, and societies. The acronym HES is related to Kashmiri word HES, which means informing, highlighting, and awakening. So this HES will serve as a research and policy house and shall be partnering in data and resource generation. Besides supporting and contributing to channelizing awareness, capacity building, communication, collaboration, education, engagements, extension, information, knowledge, intervention, research response, and representation for sustainability of the Himalayan environment. And I am among the founding member of HES and only
Oh,
woman volunteer. Yeah. And
wow, that's
my role
that's
is
amazing.
very huge. Yeah. My role is very huge and pivotal. Among
Mhm,
others, I am trying to contribute in the awareness, outreach,
mhm,
to
mhm.
generate data,
Mm,
collaboration, coordination, publication aspects.
good.
So one of our main focus is to involve students in the conservation activities through education, research, and awareness. So this is the main role
Mhm.
in HES.
Wow, I mean it's actually touching upon to almost 360-degree sustainability that the world is talking about. And I guess we all
Right.
know, even our audience, they are pretty aware that what kind of threats are there in the Kashmir Himalayas. Overall the Himalayan
Yeah.
mountains are under a lot of pressure, and people like
Yeah.
you, societies like HES, I think they play a very pivotal role in conservation of this very beautiful landscape indeed. So I mean,
Yeah.
amazing story. I mean, amazing. I think I would say initiative by people, native people of that land. So
Yeah.
great to know that, Sobiya. So you are contributing very immensely to the conservation of Himalayan forests and Himalayan flora and fauna in general. So let me come down to my next question, and I think this question I think I would really enjoy the answer from. So this is about, we talked about butterflies. Let's come down to odonets, dragonflies, and damselflies. So you also worked on odonets of the Himalayan region. And
Yeah.
what are your observations regarding climate change impacts? Were there any studies or findings from your study which have indicated any of these impacts?
Uh, we have given a baseline study to study the biodiversity of Odonata of Kashmir Himalayas. We
Okay.
reported one new record of damselfly species from Kashmir Himalayas, besides documented the Odonate biodiversity at district level.
Okay.
Once the findings will be published, there will be these will be helpful
Mhm.
in designing appropriate policies and
Right.
strategies for odonate conservation. Our findings reveal that the odonata of the area is under threat. Besides, there
Mhm.
are research gaps and thus needs urgent attention. The probable threats identified during the present preliminary observations include climate change, land use change, pollution,
Okay.
urbanization, settlements,
Mhm.
pesticides,
Oh.
habitat fragmentation.
Mhm.
These challenges are impacting the diversity, distribution, status of the odonata of the region and are forcing them to shift their distributional ranges, and there is urgent need to have a long-term ecological plan for the conservation, for the management and monitoring of this indicator taxa.
Right. So, in fact, I would, I mean, I agree with you that there is a lot of gap of knowledge, information available on ordinates from the
Yeah,
Himalayan
huge
region.
research gap is there.
Yeah, and that's, I think, primarily because very few people are working, and secondarily also the remoteness of the area, the very harsh
Yeah,
climate
yeah,
to work with.
right.
Several other things are associated with it. So, I mean, that's interesting that you have been doing this work and we are getting the first-hand data from this region, which definitely, as you mentioned, will be a baseline data which can be used for further studies, and we'll get a
Yeah, yeah,
more comprehensive understanding of what's happening in that area. So
yeah.
I would also like to talk to you about this one project that you worked with as an expert contributor, which was the City Biodiversity Index project, which you worked in for the Jammu city in 2022. So, what is this City
Right.
Biodiversity Index? What were your findings regarding the biodiversity index, and how does the biodiversity of Jammu compare to the other cities?
So this was the first city biodiversity index of Jammu city, and
Okay.
I contributed in the compilation of data of butterflies of Jammu region of
Okay.
Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
I
As
see.
a substantial part of Jammu city's natural ecosystems have been replaced by build-up areas. The remaining parts of the city's ecosystem are threatened by anthropogenic activities, and the city needs to look into devising appropriate strategies that will target the improvement of these ecosystems. City must explore ecosystem restoration process and move
Mhm.
beyond mere landscaping. Focus
Correct.
should be on developing ecologically functional spaces for
Mhm.
maintaining its floral and faunal biodiversity.
Yes.
The city needs to ensure the maintenance of both protected and unprotected spaces, which provide a variety of resources. City biodiversity indexes are being compiled by many states in India. However, still most of the cities are not covered. The first biodiversity index of Jammu city has a preliminary analysis and no concrete concern can be made. However, it is observed that for long term measures, most of the cities need holistic approach for conservation of city biodiversity so as to maintain ecological balance, optimize services, and maintain environmental sustainability. So this is the that I have worked on city biodiversity index.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting index, rather. I mean, if you compare other cities and Indian cities, we get to know where we stand. And of course, the
Yeah,
biodiversity composition wise, every city perhaps would have a different profile. Um, but I
yeah,
think we need
right.
to, as you mentioned correctly, we need to start somewhere. And I think if we do this for the entire region, for the entire country, I think there'll be nothing like that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting. This is the first time in Jammu city this was done, and it has come out really well. This is what I understand from your talk, and I think
right.
we need this for even other cities too. So we do have a lot of bird data, but we also need to compile a lot of other, faunal data, floral data. So that's a very interesting piece of work that will come out, especially in the coming few years as the cities are expanding and becoming a
Yeah,
hub for the development. We need to know what we are
yeah,
losing
urbanization
or what we are
area.
gaining. So yeah, I mean that's a very interesting piece in data. I love to perhaps would know more about this for other cities as well. As and when I think I get time, and I think even for our audience, this was the first time someone mentioned about city biodiversity index. So I think this will be a new thing for them. But we'll definitely put up links to understand city biodiversity index in your talk so that the audience can explore that. But
Yeah,
let me come down to again the favorite part of this talk, and that is your work on insects. So,
okay.
as compared to the all these charismatic fauna like tigers and elephants, all these big mammals and birds, insects are not much in the public eye. So, how do you aim to bring them into the spotlight? Since you're working on butterflies for your PhD and you've worked on odonets as well, how do you aim to
Yeah.
bring these insects into the spotlight through your research and outreach work?
Uh, we see in many countries
Hmm.
the public is by and large unaware about the benefits and services insects provide.
Right.
Instead, negative perceptions about them are widespread, which can
Hmm.
depict cultural beliefs which are not supported by not supported by the scientific evidence.
Yes.
Capacity building, awareness generation, community engagement, participation is very crucial these days and need of the hour in conservation process. So through education, awareness, capacity building interventions of community
Hmm.
members, particularly students,
Yes.
conservation and protection of many butterflies have been initiated. And I
Hmm.
am trying to involve students in conservation to motivate them about the biodiversity conservation, climate change, and aware about their role in conservation.
Yes.
I'm part of celebrating Big Butterfly Month network. In
Hmm.
addition, I am providing training awareness to
Okay.
students through field
Hmm.
visits, talks,
Hmm.
nature walks, and field studies.
Right.
So this is
Okay.
my role as an
Mhm.
individual.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but that's I think how it will inculcate to public through these all these small baby steps we take. Someone has to be consistently doing it, talking about insects, talking about what we are losing, why they are important, what are their ecosystem services, and because insects always people always feel that insects are notorious and they are bad for us, but we all know how important they are as pollinators, as various service providers,
as a
as
pollinator.
we, yes.
Yeah, ecosystem
So
services that providing.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's interesting that you're doing this work, and you're consistently doing this, not just like one time, but you're doing research as well as the outreach, so that people know there's something is happening on insects and we need to act now.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I'm very glad to know that being an insect person, another insect person talking about insects is always good. So too many
Yeah,
insects in the mind.
yeah,
So so let me go ahead with my another question. I think this is too early to ask you this, but uh, we would like to know. So, what are your career plans after you finish your PhD? Do you plan to stay in academics, or do you want to shift to more on-ground conservation or outreach?
we see that role of women is very vital and
Mhm.
important in conservation planning, especially from developing areas. As a
Absolutely.
woman, I want to highlight and work for the success stories of women's role in conservation.
Mhm.
Kashmir Himalaya in India is rich in biodiversity, but it's losing its biodiversity due to many reasons.
Mm.
Some threats are climate change, land use pattern, pollution, habitat degradation, research and policy gaps. So, my aim is to dedicate myself as a volunteer for biodiversity conservation and work for peace building. I
Right.
aspire and plan to join academics at higher education level without
Mhm.
compromising on my research and outreach activities.
Okay.
Losing my research and outreach activities and volunteerism will mean losing my identity.
Right.
So I believe it's my responsibility to protect and conserve nature for ourselves and for our future generations.
Mhm. So,
Yeah,
I mean, you want to have the best of the both the worlds, and I think this is
yeah,
important because, yeah, I mean, you can't choose just one, because we have the equal responsibility of also doing, developing the new generation that's coming. Developing this ideology, this philosophy
yeah,
of conservation, doing on-ground research, and implementing conservation action also on ground. So it has to be also translated in a way, so that you see the changes happening. And doing all
right.
these things is not easy, for a single person. So of course, it's a teamwork. A lot of people you need to work with you, and developing that capacity itself is another job. So I believe that, I mean, I wish all the success to you, and I hope in the coming few years we get to see some even further good news in terms of conservation from your end.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
sure.
so I mean, always hopeful for that, that something
Yeah,
good comes out, from this discussion.
thank you.
So you mentioned about Kashmir's biodiversity, which is slightly, which is having, which is actually under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of crisis happening. So, as a person who has been living in Kashmir, has been working there, talking to the community, involving community in the research, what does the future hold for Kashmir's faunal biodiversity, especially in the midst of climate change? And which stakeholders, locals or government, NGOs, research institutes, do you think should contribute more to safeguard biodiversity?
Uh, we see there is rising temperature,
Mhm.
declining glaciers, multiple precipitation patterns, habitat shifts, invasion of this exotic species. These are
Yes,
all the signs of climate change in the Kashmir Himalaya.
right.
Several studies have shown that snow and glacier resources in the Kashmir Himalaya are declining at an alarming rate due to rising temperature. And situation is further projected to worsen under the projected climate change over the region. And it's Pertinent to mention that significant rise in temperature with marginal changes in the precipitation is projected over Kashmir Himalayas, which is predicted to bring considerable changes in the both distribution and the extent of the prevalent climatic zones of the region, with
Yes.
implication on the regional hydrology, with biodiversity, livelihoods both up and downstream. Climate change will not impact one individual or species. Instead, it will impact almost all sectors of life. So, a coordinated effort with participation from all the stakeholders is a must. Government departments such as forest departments, wildlife department, agriculture, horticulture,
Mhm.
floriculture, pollution control board, Jammu and Kashmir Biodiversity Council, forest research institutes, scientists, policymakers, and elected representatives have a huge role and responsibility and need to encourage and support from the
Right.
government. So, at
Right.
individual level, we need to play our role with dedication. This will
Yes.
ultimately help us in taking a lead at global level in climate change, adaptation and mitigation, biodiversity conservation, and this environmental sustainability.
Yes. So, in a
Yeah,
nutshell, there has to be a collaborative action, including so many parties as such, all the
yeah.
stakeholders. Yeah.
All the
So,
stakeholders should take part in a coordinated way so that we
right.
can conserve species.
Right. But there is a very urgent need to do this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm. Okay. So, I mean, that was a very interesting and I think indeed very insightful conversation which we had with you so far. So I'm heading to my last question of this podcast, and I really enjoyed it, listening to your stories and all. But this last question, I think, is open to especially for our audience. So, what are the challenges you faced as a woman researcher? And do you want to give any quick advice to our audience based on your learnings as a woman researcher?
uh, we see women are usually considered weak. I was born and belong to a region which has seen violence and disturbances, and which wasted and denied a lot of opportunities to be explored. Also, during field studies, you have to be careful and need a company. Besides, financial aspects remain a challenge. In spite of that, I didn't give up, and there are many people who have been there to make it happen for me. I thank them all and I always pray for them. I would like to say it to other aspirants, uh, to please don't give up. We are all unique and born with a purpose. Get connected to people who have achieved with hard work and dedication. And hard work always pays. Put your full effort and rest leave it to Almighty. Lastly, I want to say society is incomplete without a woman. Great societies are because of great women. The
Correct. Yes.
services, contribution, sacrifices of women in developing a family, community, and society are infinite. So
True.
let us work together where women are treated with more dignity and honor. Only then we can justify a sustainable and knowledgeable society. Conservation is incomplete without a woman.
Very true.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So, I mean, there is a very important role that women play in the conservation, and
yeah,
one cannot deny this at all.
no, not
So,
at all.
Thanks a lot, Sobia, for those golden words. And we have come to the end of this podcast. So, as a host, I would like to thank you for being a part of this People of Nature podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. I enjoyed it and it was really a nice and wonderful talking with you.
Thanks a lot, Sobia.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj.